I didn't think anything was wrong at first. Jake, I'm going to use fake names, had always been a little restless. It's just how he was wired. Always seeking the next thing, the next thrill, the next shiny distraction. He never cheated, though. At least, not that I knew of. He was loyal enough, affectionate when he remembered, and a decent father to our daughter, Mia, or so I thought. When he started staying out later, working more weekends, claiming last-minute deadlines at his consulting firm, I chalked it up to stress. I even supported him. Made his favorite dinners, left notes in his briefcase, and booked us a weekend away. But it was like throwing pebbles into a void. Nothing came back. Then came the slip-ups. A name, Natalie, appeared on his phone screen while he was in the shower. I didn't recognize it at first, but my stomach knew before my mind did. He brushed it off, said it was a coworker asking about project files, that I was being insecure, and that he didn't have time for jealousy. But I wasn't jealous, I was suspicious. Natalie. Natalie had once dated Jake's older brother, Daniel. She was a known storm of drama, a walking red flag, as Jake himself used to call her. His parents never approved of her. Daniel had ended it years ago after she allegedly cheated and caused a public meltdown at a family barbecue. So why was she suddenly texting my husband? I dug deeper and then deeper still. What I found turned my entire world inside out. Jake wasn't just having an affair with her, he was planning to leave me. There were texts between them discussing apartments, talking about our new life, gushing over how love always finds a way. She was planning to move in with him. They had booked a trip to Cancun. He had already withdrawn money from our joint account. I confronted him 2 days later. He didn't deny it, not even for a second. Instead, he looked almost relieved, like someone had removed a boulder from his chest. He said that Natalie was the first person in years who made him feel understood, that they had a connection he never had with me, that she got him. And then the final blow, he said he was in love with her and he didn't regret it. I asked him about Mia. He said she'd adjust, that kids are resilient. Then he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes love precedes all feelings, even responsibility. That was the moment the man I thought I married died. He moved out the next morning. His parents were mortified. His mother called me in tears. His father said he was ashamed that Jake was his son. Daniel didn't even speak. He just shook his head and muttered something about betrayal and loyalty being just words these days. I think it hurt him almost as much as it hurt me. Natalie had broken his heart once, and now his own brother was choosing her over his family. I tried to hold it together for Mia. She was just 6. She kept asking why Daddy didn't come home anymore, why he stopped calling. I didn't know what to say. What do you tell a child who's been emotionally abandoned? Jake's visits became non-existent. He stopped asking about Mia, stopped sending money. There were no birthday cards, no FaceTime calls, no sorries, just photos on social media. Jake and Natalie, barefoot on beaches, sipping cocktails and throwing parties, writing captions like, "Sometimes you have to choose you." So I chose myself too. I picked myself up piece by piece, got a new job at his parents' company. I was working before too, but they offered me more money and more flexibility, which were things I really needed right now. I changed the locks, removed his name from everything, every trace of him I wiped out slowly, as if erasing a stain that had soaked too deep. His name still appeared in Mia's questions, but less frequently now. She stopped expecting calls. I think she realized in her own quiet way that he wasn't coming back. Jake's parents and Daniel stayed in our lives. His mom would pick Mia up from school some days. His dad offered to help with bills when things were tight. Daniel showed up with groceries, toys, and even fixed our leaky roof once. I didn't ask for their help, but they gave it anyway without conditions or guilt. They told me I was still family and they meant it. I learned to stop wondering why Jake did it. I stopped needing closure. The answer didn't matter. The damage was done. There was no neat explanation for why a man would abandon a child for an affair with his brother's ex. You couldn't reason with chaos. And Jake had become just that, chaos wrapped in a designer suit, driven by impulse and ego. Then, almost 2 years after he left, I got a message. It was short, from an unknown number, just 5 words. "Can we talk? It's Jake." I didn't respond, but I saved the message, not because I missed him, because I knew one day he'd come crawling back. Update 1. Jake kept texting over the next few days. Nothing angry, nothing desperate, just soft. Uncertain taps on the door he had once slammed shut behind me. He asked how I was, how Mia was, said he missed us, said he had made a lot of mistakes and just wanted to talk. One message even said he had something important to share but didn't want to say it over text. I didn't reply because I didn't care about his regrets. Not when he had left a child confused, a home broken, and a woman hollowed out by disbelief and betrayal. I didn't block him. I didn't delete the messages. I just watched them pile up. The man who once strutted around like love was a currency only he controlled was now typing long, meandering apologies at 2 a.m. What had changed? A week later, I got my answer. Jake's mom showed up at my door unannounced, her face pale and drawn. She held my hand before I could even ask what was wrong. She said it had to do with Jake and Natalie. I sat down. Natalie, it turns out, hadn't exactly been the golden ticket Jake believed she was. She had run through most of Jake's savings within the first year. Shopping sprees, new car, expensive salon membership, and exotic vacations with her girls. She wasn't working. Said she didn't have to anymore. Jake kept telling himself it was fine, that it was love, that he had made the right choice, that all the sacrifices were for them. Then a few weeks ago, she walked out just like that. Took her things, left a note, and vanished. No real explanation. Jake's mom said he was spiraling, that he had called crying, that he hadn't been eating, that he was staying in his apartment all day, refusing to go out, refusing to talk to his dad or Daniel. He kept saying he deserved it all, that he'd burned everything for a woman who had been using him. I thanked his mom for telling me, but my hands were shaking. He had not once thought about Mia during all of this. 3 days later, Jake showed up. He didn't knock. He just stood there on my porch until I noticed him through the window. Mia was at school. I was alone. I considered ignoring him, but some part of me, the part that once thought he was worth it, told me to at least hear what he had to say. He looked awful. Thin, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes wrinkled like he hadn't done laundry in weeks. He looked nothing like the man who once posed shirtless in Cancun selfies next to Natalie's spray-tan body. He asked if he could come in. I said no. He nodded, stayed on the porch. Then he just started talking. No preamble, no "how are you?" Just dove into it. He said he'd lost everything, that Natalie had played him. He said he had ignored the red flags, that he had wanted so badly to believe he had made the right choice, that he kept doubling down even as everything fell apart. He said he had tried to reach out to Daniel, but Daniel wasn't speaking to him. His savings were gone. His apartment lease was ending. He didn't know where he'd go next. And then he said something that made my jaw lock. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I miss Mia. I miss you. I thought I had time to fix things before they got this bad. I asked him what exactly he wanted. He looked like he didn't know. Maybe forgiveness, maybe sympathy, maybe just a place to feel less hated. I told him the truth, that he didn't exist to me in the same way anymore, that I could co-parent if necessary, but I wasn't opening the door to my home or my heart again. I told him he could talk to Mia if she wanted it. If she didn't, that was her choice too. I wasn't going to force kindness onto a man who discarded us like an old jacket. Jake didn't argue. He just stood there for a long time, head in his hands, until he finally left without another word. Later that evening, Daniel texted me. He said he was sorry I had to deal with Jake again, that he hadn't wanted to involve me in the fallout. But he said something else too, something that shocked me. Their parents had gone to a lawyer. Jake had been informed. They were removing him from all inheritance plans, every trust, every property tie, every financial fallback they'd once had in place for him. They were rewriting their wills and transferring what assets they could to Mia's name through me, with clauses that he couldn't touch a dime. They said it was for Mia's future, and because, in Daniel's words, he left behind a family for nothing. He deserves nothing in return. Update 2. The next morning I found a handwritten letter at my doorstep. This was so cliche. No envelope, just a folded sheet with my name scribbled in familiar handwriting. It was from Jake. I didn't open it right away. I stood there, holding it with the same hesitation you'd give something contagious. Then I slipped it between some papers on the kitchen counter and went about my day like it didn't exist. It took me 2 days to read it. When I finally did, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a plea to come back or even a request to see Mia. It was more like a confession. He talked about how empty everything felt now. How after all that talk about love preceding all feelings, what he ended up with was silence, bitterness, and a version of life that didn't even feel like it belonged to him. He said Natalie had moved out weeks ago. No big fight, no grand betrayal. She just told him one morning that she was bored and she didn't sign up to live with someone so emotionally chaotic. She packed her bags and left while he sat there with his mouth half open, realizing she was already gone. There was a part of the letter where he tried to sound deep, like this was some Shakespearean tragedy. He said he spent so much time chasing happiness that he confused adrenaline with love and silence with peace. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly gave myself a headache. I honestly had a hard time believing him. He wrote that he'd gone to see his parents the weeks prior, that his mother had cried, that his father had told him bluntly that they'd changed their wills. Every single thing, the lake house, the family land, the accounts, the trusts, was now in Daniel's and Mia's name. Not 1 cent would go to Jake. Not now, not later. Jake said that it felt like being erased while still alive. He said he understood, that he didn't blame them, that if he were them, he'd do the same. But the last line of that letter, that was the one that stayed with me. I used to think the worst part of a mistake was the consequence. Now I know it's the part where you realize no one's waiting for you to fix it anymore. It wasn't guilt, not really, it was grief. Not for what he'd done, but for the door that he'd shut for good. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Mia had stopped asking about him by now. At first, she would ask questions in a quiet, cautious way. Did Daddy move far? Did he forget my birthday? Is he mad at me? I had always answered gently, trying not to poison her image of him too much, but now she didn't ask anymore. Her world had closed around the people who stayed. She had dance classes, math tests, and weekend sleepovers at grandma's. She had Daniel, who never showed up without a story and snacks. She had safety. She didn't need the ghost of a father who only remembered he had a daughter when the rest of the world stopped entertaining him. It wasn't long after the letter that Jake showed up again. I saw him through the peephole. Same slumped shoulders, same tired face. This time, I didn't even open the door. I stepped outside and met him on the porch. He didn't argue. He just said he knew this was a long shot, but he wanted to ask if he could attend one of Mia's school events. Not even to talk to her, just to see her, even from a distance. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I told him I would ask her, that it would be her decision, and if she said no, that was final. He nodded, looked like he expected it. Before he left, he said something that caught me off guard. He said he used to think I was cold. He used to resent how easily I could walk away from arguments, how calmly I handled things when he wanted drama. He used to say I was too even, not emotional enough. Now, he said, he realized I wasn't cold, I was stable. And that stability, he said, was something he mistook for weakness because he didn't know what real strength looked like back then. I didn't answer. I just turned around and went back inside. Later that night, I asked Mia if she wanted to hear from her dad. She hesitated and then asked, "Why now?" I told her the truth. I didn't know. Maybe he missed her. Maybe he was sorry. She asked if she had to talk to him. I told her no, that this was her choice. She thought about it and then shook her head. He left. He didn't care when I waited. I don't want to pretend now. And just like that, the door was closed again. Jake didn't show up after that. Maybe he finally got it. Maybe deep down he knew that some things can't be unbroken. That you don't get to come back after watching everything you promised to protect burn and expect to be handed a seat at the table. His parents kept their distance too, but they still checked in on us. His mom would drop off little gifts for Mia. His dad fixed our fence after a storm without being asked. Daniel remained the same, dependable, soft-spoken, always there in the background without forcing his way into the spotlight. One day I found out from his mom that Jake had moved out of the city. No announcement, no drama, just packed his things and left. Supposedly, he said he needed to start over. I didn't ask where. Because wherever he went next didn't matter. He had already lost the only place he should have stayed. Update 3. There was something about silence when it came from a place of peace, not tension, that felt almost foreign. The kind of quiet that didn't demand anything from me. That's the silence Daniel brought. It started slowly. It always does, I guess. At first, he was just the one who showed up when things went wrong. Leaky faucet, he was there with his toolbox before I even asked. Mia's school needed an extra volunteer. He showed up in a t-shirt and jeans, carrying snacks and pretending he didn't know the other parents were staring. He never talked about Jake unless I brought him up. And even then, he kept it respectful, neutral, which I appreciated more than I realized at the time. What I didn't expect was how comfortable it became, how easy it was to fall into routines with him. He'd stop by on Friday evenings, bringing takeout and letting Mia force him into watching animated movies. Sometimes we'd sit on the back porch after he went to bed, passing around a bowl of popcorn, talking about life, work, weird news stories, anything that had nothing to do with the wreckage behind us. And then one night I caught myself looking at him a little too long. His laugh was different, deeper, real. It didn't come with a second edge like Jake's had. He didn't try to impress me. He just showed up, listened, stayed. That night after he left, I sat on the couch long after the door clicked shut, wondering when I would start smiling so much again. Of course, nothing stays simple. Jake's name came back into the picture unexpectedly. This time through his parents. They'd scheduled a formal appointment with a lawyer to finalize the last few estate documents. Everything was in place now. Daniel would manage the assets and Mia would inherit under a trust controlled jointly by me and a financial advisor. Jake's name was nowhere in the structure. It wasn't just financial revenge, it was a legacy decision, a message. They finally had the talk with me. I knew what they were doing through Daniel and when Jake had mentioned it in his letter, but this was the first proper conversation they had with me. They told me gently that they wanted me and Mia to be secure. Watching us get left behind while Jake played out his fantasy had felt like a betrayal to the entire family. And now they wanted to set things right. I felt overwhelmed, not because I wanted their money, far from it, but because for the first time in years, someone wasn't waiting for me to beg. They were choosing us without needing a reason. Daniel was quiet as they explained everything. When we stepped outside, he just looked at me and said he hoped I wasn't uncomfortable. I told him I wasn't. I was just tired of always feeling like I had to fight for basic decency. He smiled, said I shouldn't have to anymore. And that's when I reached for his hand. It wasn't planned. I didn't even think about it, but it felt like the most natural thing in the world. And he didn't let go. I didn't tell Mia right away, not because I was hiding anything, but because I didn't want her to feel like her world was shifting again. She was finally happy, finally steady. But she noticed. Kids always do. One evening, while I was brushing her hair, she asked if Uncle Daniel was going to come over for dinner again. I said maybe. She grinned and said she hoped he would, that he told the best jokes and made her feel less like everything's weird now. Then she added, "You look happier when he's around, Mom." I didn't respond. I just kissed the top of her head and told her I loved her. A few weeks later, Daniel and I went out to dinner. Not takeout, not Mia's favorite pizza place, a real dinner with reservations and dressed up clothes and a little bit of nerves. It felt like a date, and it was. We didn't talk about Jake or the past. We talked about what we liked, where we'd want to travel, what we remembered about growing up in this city. He asked me if I ever wanted to leave it all behind and start over somewhere new. I told him I used to, but now I just wanted to build something better right where I was. That night when he walked me to the door, he didn't kiss me. He waited. And when I stepped forward to kiss him, he smiled like someone who had been waiting for that moment a long time. News of our closeness must have reached Jake eventually. People are mouthy, especially when families like his are involved. I didn't hear from him directly, but his mom told me he'd called her asking about us. She didn't confirm anything, just told him that maybe if he hadn't been so quick to leave, he'd know the answers. She said he sounded broken. I didn't enjoy that, not really, but I didn't feel bad for him either. He was the architect of his own loneliness. And Daniel? Daniel was the proof that not all men disappear when life gets complicated. One night, as Daniel was putting Mia to bed after reading her favorite story, I watched from the hallway. His voice was soft, calm, patient. She giggled when he did the voices, clung to his arm when he tucked her in. He kissed her forehead and turned off the light with a gentle good night. She had just turned 9, but she refused to let this habit go. It was adorable. He didn't see me watching, but in that moment, I knew. This man didn't just fill in the empty space Jake left behind. He made it better. He made it whole. Update 4. It's been a year now. A year since I last saw Jake. It's strange how much can change in 12 months and how far people can move apart. Mia's doing great. She's 10 now and fully in her wise beyond her years phase. She's the kind of kid who asks thoughtful questions and then runs off laughing like she didn't just drop a philosophical bomb into the room. She doesn't talk about Jake much. Occasionally she'll mention something vague, a memory, a photo she found in an old album. But she speaks of him like you would an old neighbor you once knew, not someone you used to love. She's bonded deeply with Daniel. The two of them have inside jokes I'm not even part of. Silly handshakes, a tradition of Sunday morning pancakes where she's the chef and he's the assistant. I don't push it. I just let it grow naturally, and it did. As for me, I stopped calling what I have now starting over. It's not a reset. It's a continuation of a life I never got the chance to fully live because I was too busy doing damage control for someone who couldn't tell love apart from impulse. Daniel and we're good. Better than good. We're real. He never tried to fill Jake's space. He made one of his own, and he waited until I was sure before even thinking about taking another step forward. No pressure, no expectations, just patience, care, and this quiet kind of love that builds slowly, layer by layer. It was healthy, and that, to me, felt like a miracle. Then a few weeks ago, I ran into their mom at the grocery store. We exchanged greetings happily. Both of my in-laws were supportive of my relationship with Daniel. I asked about her health and she asked about Mia. Then she mentioned Jake. He was back. Not permanently, just visiting apparently. But she said he was different, quiet, withdrawn, staying with a friend. Said he hadn't really spoken much to anyone, but had asked about us, about Mia mostly. I could feel it coming before she even said it. She told me he found out about Daniel and me, that someone in the neighborhood had mentioned it in passing, that we were official. She said he didn't react loudly, no rage, no denial, just sat there, silent for a long time, and then asked if it was serious. She told him yes, that we'd been together a while now, that Daniel had stepped up when he stepped out, that there was no triangle, only a gap he left that someone else filled with kindness and consistency. And then I was caught off guard when she told me that Jake had cried. Not the self-pitying kind, not the performative poor me tears. She said he cried the way someone cries when they realize there's nothing left to fix, that the page really has turned, that the story didn't pause when he left. It just kept going, and now he is no longer a part of it. A few days later, after that, I got a message. It was from Jake. I opened it. He didn't beg, didn't ask for forgiveness. There wasn't any blame or revisionist storytelling or excuses. He just acknowledged, which was weird. He said he understood that he had rewritten his own future the day he walked out on his family for a woman who was never going to stay. He said he knew now that what he thought was freedom was just loneliness in disguise, that the version of himself he became after leaving us wasn't someone he even liked, much less someone anyone could love. He said he'd heard about me and Daniel, and that while it hurt, he didn't hate it. In fact, he said it made sense. He wrote that he always knew his brother was the better man, but he never realized just how wide that gap was until it was too late to close. And then he ended it with a single line that I had to read twice to believe. I've stopped asking for redemption. I'm just grateful someone was there to catch what I dropped. I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumph, just closure. Even though I was not waiting for it, and sometimes that's better than anything else. Update 5. Daniel proposed last month. It wasn't dramatic, no grand gestures or flash mobs. Just him and I in the backyard while Mia was off on a school field trip. He said it quietly, like it had always been coming, and I said yes. Not because I needed a new chapter, but because I had already been living it for a while. Jake didn't come to the wedding. He wasn't invited, not because I was punishing him, but because this part of my life didn't include him. And he finally seemed to understand that. Daniel's parents welcomed me like I'd been theirs all along. His mom cried more than I did. Mia walked ahead of me with a basket of petals, grinning so big I thought her face might burst. The atmosphere was full of love, the kind that stays. I don't know where Jake is now. I heard he left again. I don't keep tabs. I don't need to. Whatever journey he's on now is his to walk, just like I had to walk mine. The difference is I didn't do it alone, and maybe that's the thing that broke him most. Not that I moved on, but that someone else was willing to stay. Not out of guilt, not out of history, but because he chose to, every single day. Edit. I want to thank all of you for showing so much support for me, for my daughter and for Daniel and I. My parents had passed away long before Jake came into my life, and that's why I didn't mention them. I also do not have any relatives that I know of, and yes, my friends were very supportive of me. Daniel and I have discussed having more children, and we'll maybe have one in the near future. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.